Hello everyone, my name is Yusnupong Vidyasri Pongkun, number 21.
My name is Puninandong Saitong, number 14.
My name is Alilala Warakongun, number 25.
My name is Nisha Konyamwen, number 13.
My name is Saran Pattesasri Paipun, number 12.
We are group from 3/14 and today we'll be talking about one of the most popular and influential events at this time, the Russo-Ukrainian War or the Russian invasions of Ukraine. Before we get started, I want to say that because the conflicts and invasions are still in progress and haven't stopped yet, our group is going to focus on the past events that led to the war, not the summary of ongoing invasions. And in our videos, we are going to describe altogether 3 points: the origin of the war, what we have learned from the war, and what we think about this war. Now let's start with the first topic, the origin of the war. At the beginning of 10th century, there were a group of people called the Slavs who lived sporadically and separated into many groups around the area of the present-day Russia and Ukraine. Until the late 10th century, the people from Norse clan came from Europe and gathered many groups of the Slavs and established a city called Kiev, or the present-day Ukraine's capital. Until 13th to 15th century, the nearby Mongol Empire started to have more power and spread their power to control the area, caused the Eastern Slavs that were not colonized to be separated again into many groups, until there are 2 main groups that were able to revive and expand their power. The first one was called the Cossack, which people nowadays believed were the indigenous people of Ukraine, and the second one was the group around Moscow, which was much larger than the Cossack. They expanded power and influence through the western region of the Russia and finally declared themselves as the Russian Empire in 1721. However, during the 19th century, when the nationalism was highly influential, the Cossack people around the present-day Ukraine area started to feel that they were not part of the Russian Empire. On the other hand, the Russian Empire saw Ukraine as their dominant under their dominance. This dissension gave rise to the Russian Revolution in 1917, with the overthrow of the Russian dynasty, and Ukraine took a chance of the chaos in Russia to declare independence. After the revolution, there was no one to govern Russia, causing the civil war that can be separated into 2 sides. The first side is the Red Army or the Bolsheviks created by the Russian Communist government during the revolution, and the second one was the White Army or the people who opposed the Bolsheviks. The Bolsheviks invaded and seized Ukraine that has declared its independence for a few years. The situation clearly pointed out that the White Army lost the war, so the Vladimir Lenin of Bolshevik declared Russian Empire as a new nation called the Soviet Union since then, with Ukraine as their dominant that always fought for its independence but failed because of different strategies used by the Soviet Union governor.
However, each Soviet leaders didn't use the same method. For example, in 1954, Soviet got a new leader who is Nikita Khrushchev. He has a unique way to make Ukraine under the power of Soviet by giving Crimea to Ukraine. Where is Crimea and what is the importance of it? Crimea is under the rule of Russia since the 18th century, but when Soviet Union created, it became independent under Soviet Russia. However, wars have made Crimea change from independent state to a province in Russia. Crimea is an important point because it is surrounded by the sea, so this is the easiest way for Russia and Soviet to get to Mediterranean Sea. Russia and Soviet tried to set their navy on Crimea, and now Russian Navy are still in Crimea. Even though Crimea is under Ukraine at present, but in 1997 there is a signing that Ukraine allowed Russia to set navy in this area. Some people said Crimea was a gift for 300 years anniversary that countries of Ukraine and Russia joined together. But some people think that Crimea was closer to Ukraine, so they gave it to Ukraine. And some people think that Khrushchev wanted to refine relationship between Soviet Russia and Soviet Ukraine. Soviet Russia didn't take good care of Ukraine and other countries under them. So in 1980, countries under Soviet protested that they want to be free from Soviet. In 1988 to 1991, communists failed. At that time, it was nearly the end of Cold War between communists and democracy. So people thought that the democracy won. Soviet Russia collapsed on December 25, 1991, and people take it as the end of Cold War. Reason why Soviet Russia collapsed was because the subdivisions declared their independence. The leaders came together and announced that they wouldn't be under Soviet anymore, but they was under CIS instead. But at last CIS also collapsed, so Soviet broke into 15 countries.
Some of the alliances had broken down by the end of the Cold War, yet some still remained, such as NATO or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, a significant military alliance that brings together around 30 nations in the Atlantic Ocean. And the main participants would be the Canada and Europe, which are all under the American leadership. And the issue of the Ukraine is currently facing is this. One issue Ukraine is still struggling with after leaving the Soviet Union is deciding whether to choose the liberal democratic or the communist system. Furthermore, for hundreds of years, Ukraine has never been independent. Because of their sudden independence, Ukraine is unsure on what to do next. Ukraine asks help from two organizations as a result. The first one is the EU, secondly there's NATO. Both of these organizations have a bias to favor Europe and America. In contrast, 1 in 6 of Ukrainians identify as Russian, and 1 in 3 Ukrainians are native speakers in Russian. Consequently, some Ukrainians still believe that they are Russian, and therefore an enemy of Europe and America. And they thought that, why do they have to require to join the European and America then? Because of this, there's a controversy in Ukraine on whether they should join America or they should remain with Russia. And also, when Ukraine left the Soviet Union in 1991, they discovered that the Soviet has stored a variety of nuclear weapons, many of which are still visible in Ukraine, including the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Moreover, Ukraine rose to become the 3rd largest nuclear-powered nation in the world. This led to a difficulty because Ukraine promised not to use its nuclear weapons but still want to keep them. Of course, having Ukraine retain all its nuclear weapons would not satisfy either Russia or United States, which are the world's largest nuclear owners. Ukraine agreed in 1994 to give up its weapons in exchange of the support from Russia and the United States in form of the economic aid and others. Like the story is over, but we must still see whether the US and Russia will uphold the agreement. Because of this, there was a huge amount more controversy surrounding landing in the year 2000s. For example, Viktor Yanukovych was a politician active in 2004. He won the election while being a strongly pro-Russian. So as a result, many of Ukrainians wonder, did he cheat? An uprising known as a Orange Revolution occurred in the Ukraine. As a result, he failed to gain the power. Yanukovych was replaced in 2005 by a pro-European Viktor Yushchenko. Yushchenko has a strategy to separate Ukraine from Russia. And now, those who support Europe are satisfied. In 2008, NATO offered Ukraine to join them. So far, it looks like Viktor Yanukovych, who was overthrown, succeeded in winning the election again in 2010. He thereby won the election and became a president. He then rejected NATO and EU agreements as a result. The pro-European side in Ukraine protested once more under the banners of the Euromaidan, because of they were frustrated. The result is Viktor Yanukovych was forced to resign in 2014 and runs away to Russia, where Vladimir Putin is now in power. When Putin realized this, he became concerned that he might lose the control of Ukraine, so he had to take action of something.
The main reason why Russia wants to invade Ukraine is because of these 3 reasons. The first reason, Russia sees that Ukraine is a part of their country, so Ukraine may come back to Russia, but if Ukraine requests some help from another country, Russia will be angry about it. The second reason is that Russia already gave Crimea to Ukraine and created a base there. So if a country in Europe or USA have force over that area, the base will be in a territory with influence from those countries, and Russia is against this. And the last reason is that Ukraine is located in the middle of Russia and Europe and act as a barrier of these two countries. So if the barrier is gone, it's very dangerous for Russia since war can start easily. So as a result, in 2014, Russia started the invasion to take Crimea back. At first, they were secretive with the people they used, known as Little Green Men, being a soldier in green uniform without name tags that indicate they were from Russia. And Russia allowed Crimea to vote whether they want to side with Ukraine or Russia, and they end up with Russia. Then Russia ended up confessing that they were the one who sent soldiers, but whether they actually gave Crimea the chance to vote is unknown. And finally, Crimea became a part of Russia while Ukraine wondered why they took it back. So Ukraine tried to take Crimea back again.
Getting to know Russia's antics can be very useful to you. The very recent Russo-Ukrainian war is, well, recent. It's still ongoing, and it can benefit you by knowing information. So you get to know the history and story of Russia and Ukraine. And since it's a relatively new event, you still see the context, and you also see the long history of knowing Putin's intention and part of why they do this. You see a bigger view of the situation other than what you see on the news or what some people might assume, like wars, destruction, fighting. You don't see that. You see their antics, you see the history, you see why Russia decides to do this. You see what they did right, what they have to right to, and what they did wrong. And same with Ukraine, what Ukraine should have done, what Ukraine shouldn't have done. You are able to form an opinion on that based off the fact and the history that you have seen. So knowing this, also knowing how it ties into other hectic situations such as Brexit, the new US president, or the COVID pandemic. Being tied slightly like this give Russia the courage to start, and knowing how it ties into even the smallest or largest event from as long as 200 years ago allows you to see the social impact it had on Russia and and how the communists affected all of this. It gives you an information advantage, being updated on every part. This allows you to somewhat predict events and what will happen in the future, which can be very useful for you.
And the last topic is what we think about the war. We think that the most important and the most distinct cause of this long ongoing war is that Russia wants Ukraine to be part of its dominance. So the thing that really needs to be done is compromising. Because without compromising, these two countries will fought each other again and again. And it doesn't give any benefits to both sides at all. You may have also seen that a lot of other countries in the world have some strategies to stop the war between these two countries, because it gives only damages and destructions. So if these two countries compromise each other, then there will be a peace, and give a lot of advantages to the other countries in the world. And this is all we have summarized for you about the Russo-Ukrainian war, the Russian invasions of Ukraine. We hope you enjoy it and see you next time. Thank you for watching.